Welcome back. Well, as the final weeks of hearings for the Royal Commission looms, the Coalition is now urging Labor to extend its time frame and its remit to ensure that key voices are heard. Leading the charge is Shadow Education Minister Julian Leeser, who joins me live from Canberra. Julian, thanks for your time. Look, you gave a brilliant speech in Parliament today. I played a lot of it at the start of the show. What are your key concerns about this Royal Commission?
Well, Shari, this Royal Commission had three tasks. Number one, to hear the stories of Jewish Australians, which it's done reasonably well. Number two, to provide recommendations, which we'll see later in the piece. But number three, and most importantly, its job is to hold people to account who are in positions of leadership and whose leadership has failed. And it's in that area that I don't think that the Commission has done enough, and that's because it hasn't had the time to do it. And I want to see the Commission given an extension of time in order that it can get people from the arts community, from universities, the Human Rights Commission, government ministers, and put them on the stand and hold them to account. I think that's so important. We're never going to get this opportunity again. 15 people were murdered in cold blood at Bondi Beach. We owe it to them to make sure that this Commission does its job properly.
I had the former Disability Royal Commissioner and former Federal Court Judge Ronald Sackville in the program last night, and he also said that he felt the Commission hadn't used either enough or effectively its coercive powers. You know, forcing people or issuing subpoenas for people to give evidence and obtaining documents. I mean, we've barely seen that at all.
I gave the example in my speech today of the Child Sexual Abuse Royal Commission, where bishops and religious leaders were taken out of nursing homes and put on the stand to give evidence and held to account for their decisions. In this Royal Commission, we've seen recently retired Vice-Chancellors not called to talk about the failures at their universities. We need to see so many more people held to account, and that's why the Commission needs more time. And ultimately, the Albanese government never wanted to have this Royal Commission. It gave it an unfair amount of time in terms of 11 months. It set the terms of reference. Now I'm calling on the Albanese government and the Prime Minister to do the right thing and extend the time so that the Commission can do the job it needs to do.
Look, I agree with you that the time is too short. We said that from the start. It's on by far the short side of Royal Commissions, just 11 months. The hearings only beginning in May this year. However, I don't only think the issue is the timing. I think that what we've seen in tone from this Commission is that it's treading very softly, treading very lightly, doesn't seem to want to upset anyone. And I think even if it had another 2 years, you still wouldn't kind of get the sort of teeth that you're talking about that you've seen in other Royal Commissions.
Well, Shari, I've been consistent on saying this about the timing of the Commission and its three roles since the Commission was established. I've made several speeches about this, but with the final hearings to be wrapped up next week, I think it's very important that we put the ball in the government's court here to ensure that the Commission can do the things that it needs to do and to ensure that it does do the things that it needs to do. And that's to amend its terms of reference, to ensure it's got the time and it's got the direction to hold people to account.
But what do you think about my point that it does seem reluctant to put some of the alleged perpetrators of offensive behaviour on the stand?
Well, look, I think it's very clear from my speech that it just clearly hasn't put those people on the stand and that it needs to put those people on the stand. Otherwise, we desecrate the memory of the people who died at Bondi Beach. And we send, even worse, Shari, a message to people that when leaders fail to take responsibility for their actions, that effectively there is no consequence for that. And so that sends a terrible message to Australians about the way in which you can ignore anti-Semitism, you can downplay it, and nothing will happen to you.
Look, as I said, you did call for the Prime Minister, the Education Minister, Home Affairs Minister, Foreign Affairs Minister, the Attorney General to all be called to respond to questions about their handling of this crisis. What are the key issues that you would put to them?
Well, I'd put to them, you know, what were the resources and powers that they gave their agencies? What advice did they receive as the anti-Semitism grew from October 7 as to what they should do? I'd asked the Foreign Minister why, when she visited Israel, she decided not to go south to visit the kibbutzim and why the government continued to pursue its policy of delegitimising the Jewish state and the effect that that had on the Jewish people. I'd ask the Education Minister why he repeatedly failed to support a judicial inquiry into anti-Semitism on campus and failed to call the universities, the NTEU, the student leaders, the university regulators to deal with these issues. I'd ask the Attorney-General why she and her predecessor failed to deal with the anti-Semitism at the Human Rights Commission. I'd ask the Prime Minister why he always had to be dragged kicking and screaming to do anything in relation to protecting the Jewish community from anti-Semitism and ensuring the safety of all Australians.
Look, that was a question without notice, and you can tell you're a lawyer because you had all the answers ready to go. Julian Leeser, thank you very much for your time. And again, exceptional speech today. And I'm so glad you put that on the record in Parliament because, you know, we've been talking about, including you and I, those exact concerns, you know, off air, but now it's on the record in the Parliament in Hansard.
Thank you, Shari, and thanks for your leadership on these issues too.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, after the break, Donald Trump's fiery threat